All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're talking about something that so many of us experience, but almost nobody talks about, those really distressing, unwanted thoughts about harm. It can be absolutely terrifying when this happens, so in this explainer, we're going to break it all down piece by piece.
So let me ask you, have you ever been just going about your day and then bam, a horrible, disturbing image flashes into your mind and you're left just reeling, thinking, where on earth did that come from? Is there something wrong with me? If that sounds familiar, I need you to know you are definitely not alone.
Okay, right off the bat, let's get the single most important thing out on the table. Just because a thought pops into your head, it does not mean you want to act on it. A thought is not an intention. It's not a secret desire. It's just a thought.
So, to really get a handle on this, let's first define what we're actually talking about from a psychological standpoint.
The clinical term for this is an obsessive thought. And look at those keywords, involuntary and distressing. This isn't something you're choosing to think about. It's more like a mental spam email. It's an unwelcome intruder that shows up without an invitation and causes a ton of anxiety. What's so important to understand is the real nature of these harm-related thoughts. They are what experts call ego dystonic. Now, that's just a fancy way of saying they're the complete and total opposite of who you are and what you believe in. And that's exactly why they feel so awful. They clash with your deepest values.
And that brings us to, the million-dollar question. How can you be sure it's just a thought and not something more? Let's break down the difference.
This table just lays it out perfectly. Look at the obsessive thought column. There's zero intent, anxiety is through the roof, it goes against everything you stand for, and, this is key, you have complete control over your actions. You don't do it. Now look at the other side. With real violent intent, every single one of those things is the exact opposite. This right here is the proof that a scary thought doesn't make a dangerous person.
So if these thoughts aren't who you are, then why in the world is your brain sending you this stuff? Well, there are actually some really interesting psychological and even neurological reasons for it.
Psychologically speaking, these thoughts are a classic core symptom of conditions like obsessive-compulsive disorder, or OCD. But they can also just be triggered by really high levels of stress or general anxiety. Some psychologists even think it might be the mind's weird way of testing itself, almost like running a mental fire drill to make sure you're still in control.
And it's not just in your head, psychologically speaking. There's real brain biology at play here. Research shows there can be overactivity in the parts of your brain that are kind of like the repeat button for thoughts. On top of that, an imbalance in brain chemicals like serotonin, which is a key mood regulator, can make it way harder for your brain to just let these thoughts go. And all of this leads to something called cognitive dissonance. It's the reason these thoughts hurt so much. You've got this horrible thought on one hand, and on the other, you have this deep core belief that you are a good moral person. Your brain is having a massive internal tug of war between those two things, and that conflict is what generates all that intense anxiety.
Okay, so now let's talk about how this anxiety can actually trap you. It can create this vicious cycle that, believe it or not, makes the thoughts feel even stronger and more real. This is the classic loop. It goes like this. Step 1, the intrusive thought shows up. Step 2, that thought triggers a massive spike of fear. So step 3, to get rid of that awful feeling, you do something, a compulsion. And step 4, you get a little bit of temporary relief. But here's the trap. That relief teaches your brain that the compulsion worked, which makes it almost certain you'll do it again next time. So what do these compulsions even look like? Well, some are physical things you can see, like avoiding the kitchen knife block or checking over and over again that the doors are locked. But they can also be completely invisible, things you do inside your own head, like repeating a safe phrase or counting to a certain number to cancel out a bad thought. So, how do you break this cycle? That's the big question, right? Well, the really good news is that there is a very clear, very effective path to getting back in the driver's seat. Let's walk through it. But before we get to the solutions, let's just tackle the biggest fear head on. How do you know for sure that this is just your brain playing tricks on you and not something more serious? Well, there are some very clear red flags to watch out for. An intrusive thought is just a random firing in the brain. Real concern is only warranted if it crosses over into action, like making actual plans, getting tools together, or feeling a genuine desire to act. You can see just how different this is from the fear and disgust we've been talking about. If any of these apply, it's absolutely critical to get professional help right away.
For anyone struggling with obsessive thoughts, the absolute gold standard treatment is a specific kind of therapy called exposure and response prevention, or ERP. Basically, it helps you learn to face the thoughts without doing the compulsions. And for many people, medications called SSRIs can be a game changer. They help regulate that serotonin we talked about, which can turn down the volume on the thoughts and make therapy feel a lot more manageable.
And alongside that professional help, there are things you can do for yourself. Learning simple breathing exercises can really take the edge off when anxiety spikes. Pouring your energy into hobbies and activities that you care about can shift your focus. And honestly, just talking about it with a professional you trust can lift a massive weight off your shoulders.
So after all of this, what's the big takeaway? It's simple. You are stronger than your thoughts. They might feel loud, powerful, and incredibly scary, but they do not define you. With the right understanding and the right support, you can learn to see them for what they are, just random noise, and realize that you are, and you always have been, the one in control.